Hello, everyone. My name is LaDawn. I am the Tribal Public Health Educator here at San Ildefonso, and today we will be talking about heart health. We are going into part 2 of our heart health series, and I want to thank you for joining us. I hope you're able to take this message provided and consider an approach that will be beneficial to you, your family, and your heart. I'm leaving time at the end of this presentation to answer questions. Please use the chat feature that's available on the page to ask questions. The discussion is being recorded, so you can access the presentation on San Ildefonso Facebook page and the YouTube page. I would ask that if you have time, I think it would be a really good idea to discuss the information provided and what you've learned with your family, so you will all be well informed about the information on heart health moving forward. Also, as mentioned, we have the part 1 series of this presentation also available on Facebook and YouTube. So go back and kind of refresh yourself if you'd like, but I'll be going over a brief overview of what we talked about a couple days ago. So in this brief heart review, we talked about how our heart is a complex and an important organ of the cardiovascular system. Our heart works in a network of blood vessels. And what happens is our heart is continuously ensuring that blood is circulating throughout our body. It also works to supply a large amount of oxygen and nutrients from our blood. It also gets rid of carbon dioxide and waste. We also talked about normal heart flow and how blood flows continuously at regular pressure. And this is what we want. We want normal pressure from our heart going throughout our body, making sure that everything's working within unison. And when the blood flows through the blood vessels at high pressure, it puts a lot of force and stress on our heart and also on our veins and our artery walls. So this really compromises our delicate veins. And over time, while we're not maintaining our body, while we're not maintaining our health, it will cause hypertension, high blood pressure if it's not regulated. The last presentation included a few options for us to learn about controlling our bodies. About ways of really lowering our blood pressure. This includes starting a healthy lifestyle. Food impacts our heart function. And so when the heart receives high amounts of saturated fat and alcohol and sodium in our bloodstream, it will cause an impact the way blood moves throughout our body. So we want to make sure that we're including more fruits and vegetables. I'm finding and reading a lot about how fruits and vegetables are great resources to help your body. There's a lot of nutrients, a lot of fiber in colored produce. So that's one consideration. We also learned about the main causes of the irregular high rate of heart disease is caused by diabetes. We also learned about bad and good cholesterol and the different types of fats. We identified types of cholesterol, low density lipoprotein. This gets its name because of how it deposits plaque in blood vessels. Some cholesterol comes from the foods that we eat, and because of the way these food items don't dissolve in the blood, and because they're also water resistant, it collects on our blood vessels, and this will increase our chances of heart attack or stroke. And then to the right, the graphic there shows good fats. So HDL is a kind of vacuum cleaner. So these types of fats return excess cholesterol to the liver to be broken and taken out of the body. And this really provides protection against heart attacks and stroke. So here I wanted to share this graphic, or this slide, to identify some of the most common foods that are in the American diet. And so, for example, if we're focusing on modifying our cholesterol intake and reducing LDL cholesterol in our foods that we eat, it may be helpful to look at foods differently. And so when we go to health professionals, doctors, our primary care physician, they give us information, they provide us with information about foods that we should eat. But it's really difficult in finding, because as Native people, we have a hard time with change. We have a difficult time understanding what other people see as healthy, as what other people see that's good for us. Sometimes they don't understand our background, but here, the message that I want to convey is that it's really up to the individual to take that initiative to educate themselves about what we're talking about here, about our heart, educating yourself about what good foods are, and then also listening to your body, understanding what foods do to your body. And usually your body will tell you whether, it'll tell you maybe you have an upset stomach. That's something we should listen to as well. And so I mentioned in the bulletin, the February bulletin, about suggestions to increase mindful and awareness of the foods that we eat. Using these tools or our natural senses, we could help ourselves to increase mindfulness and awareness of the foods that we eat. The tools that we already have are within us. They are our sense of taste, our smell, and our vision. So I want to share this information here. In a recent study, a group of pre-diabetic patients increased mindfulness, and they increased diabetes prevention education by learning about food-related behaviors. They increased their knowledge about food-related behaviors, which overall led to improving their health. So we asked that question, what did they do to improve health? Well, they increased exercise, they learned about reading nutrition labels, they reduced portion sizes, they chose healthier snacks, they reduced sugar, they increased vegetable intake, they incorporated new exercises, they reduced fat intake, they reduced calories and carbohydrates. And so they talked about being more mindful, using breathing techniques and consciousness, or increasing consciousness about their eating behaviors. They adjusted their shopping, their cooking, their dining out, physical activities, and they changed their eating behavior to delay or they reduced their development of diabetes. So this is a recent study, and I found it very important and very useful in sharing. So it is definitely possible to change the trajectory of your health. So with lifestyle modifications, many people find it difficult to make changes to their daily lives. Here at the Health and Human Services, we want you to focus on and think about adjusting how you eat and adjusting your eating behavior. So really focus on the present moment when it's time to eat. I would pose a challenge to consider at least one day in the week to focus on the present moment that you're in when you sit down to eat your meal. Take time to acknowledge those feelings as you're sitting there with your food in front of you, your thoughts, and any sensations. For example, before eating, think about the foods you're going to eat. And then sometimes understanding how much you're going to eat and what you eat can affect others around you. So here I have a few tips to help building a healthy relationship. This includes eating slowly and mindfully. So practices that can help you get to mindfulness. Number one, begin with a shopping list. Stick to that shopping list. Don't be impulsive. Get more produce. Avoid the center aisles because they are filled with processed foods. Come to the table with an appetite, but not a ravenous one. Skipping meals may cause you to eat anything and only think about filling up instead of enjoying your food. Start with small portions. Maybe consider using a smaller plate. Appreciate your food. Pause for a couple minutes and think about everything and everyone that it took to bring your meal together. Additional tips, bring all your senses to the meal. When you're cooking, when you're serving and eating, be aware of the color on your plate. Pay attention, take some time to identify the food textures in your mouth. Identify flavors, aromas, and ingredients and seasonings. Take small bites. And when you do this, did you realize it was easier to taste food completely when your mouth wasn't full? Put down your fork in between bites. Chew thoroughly. So chew well depending on the food and identify flavors that are released. And eat slowly. Try at least being mindful before you talk with those at the table. Finally, it's very important to take time to respect the environment and your cravings. This can be done by turning off distractions. Yes, we like our cell phone, we like the TV on, but maybe turn your screen off and avoid checking social media. And that could help you to become more mindful of the food in front of you. And so I was hoping that we'd be able to share here with a little bit of information about mindful eating exercise with our staff. So what happened was our staff conducted a mindful eating exercise a few days ago. It was an exercise we would like to share with our listeners. We had Indian tacos for lunch. We first began by building our Indian tacos. Everyone anxiously waited for the group to make their own tacos and have a seat. I feel like it was a brutal exercise, and it was maybe difficult for everyone else to kind of wait as we sat down to eat our food. Next, we were allowed to observe any sensations when looking and making contact with the food in front of us. So we were smelling the food. We tore pieces of the fry bread, and this exercise identified how our mind wanders when we are hungry, or it allowed us to adjust how we think about foods and the movements we take. So we were cutting into our taco, and also we talked about how other noises in the room may have distracted us from being in tune to that present moment. So everyone took a bite, but nobody was allowed to chew the taco. Instead, they were asked to identify any flavors before chewing. And then next, they chewed slowly. They identified smelling, tasting flavors, spices, and any lingering tastes or sensation. They are asked to take any wandering thoughts and bring the attention back to the food in their mouth. And so some of the conversations that we had were that a few of our employees found that it was very difficult. It really tested their patience. And I recall they felt like they were being teased. And so this wasn't really anything to discourage anyone from doing, but I was really curious about how everyone felt with this exercise. Is there anybody on? Yeah. Okay. So, okay. Hold on. Okay, we have our director here, Troy, and I want to ask him a question. So, what I pose, the question I have for him is, what did you learn about yourself and the slow process of this approach to eating?
Can you hear me? Okay, now you can probably hear me. I was on mute. So I have a hard time. I had a hard time with that with that exercise. We're so used to just jumping on and getting our food and eating it as soon as it's put in front of us, because we've been either waiting to eat all day long, or whatever we were doing to prepare for our dinner or lunch or breakfast. And I think that the mindful exercise made it very easy for me to understand that patience is important. And I realized that when it comes to eating, I didn't have a lot of it. But it helped me to realize the importance of, eating mindfully, paying attention to what you're doing, paying attention to what you're tasting, paying attention to what you're consuming, because we don't usually do that. We just literally just put the food down and eat. And I appreciated the exercise because it taught me something about myself, about how I usually approach food and usually approach eating. Everybody can probably tell I don't have a problem eating. So I think that anybody who wants to, ouch, that just fell, sorry. Anybody who wants to really pay attention to what they eat and really manage their food intake and really pay attention to how they consume food, especially, you know, there's always the talk about, making sure that you eat very slowly because your body has to catch up to what you're taking in. It takes about 15 minutes to realize you're full. And if you just eat really quickly and finish whatever's on your plate, what is the first thing that most of us do is we go back for seconds. And that's probably not the best thing to do because you're actually eating more food than your body actually needs. So that mindfulness exercise taught me patience, taught me to think about how I'm eating, what I'm eating. I was really hungry that day. And um, I think that the exercise was, it's always good, I think, to learn something about yourself. And that exercise really taught me something that I forgot a long time ago. That mindful eating is actually a healthy way of approaching your diet or food intake or however you want to look at it. And so that's um, really what I got out of it. And I can tell you that the rest of us, was it 6 of us at the table that day? We everybody was kind of looking, saying, "Why are we waiting for so long to eat?" But it made sense when we did it. When we finally finished and we finally started eating the food, everybody was able to reflect back and say, "Okay, this is what I learned about myself using this, that technique." So that's my input on it, and I appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I did get approached by a few of the employees, and they were talking about like they never thought of doing that with savory foods. I recall I did this with chocolate, and like I mindfully took the different types of chocolates and really looked at flavors. And so I learned to appreciate chocolate more. I don't really like the milk chocolate. I really like the higher content of cocoa in a chocolate, like a chocolate bar. So that's what brought this exercise up, and I would like to try it again um, with a new group, or with maybe with a group of students sometimes down the road. I know it's very difficult because we have been taught, our mind's been trained in different ways, and many of us don't realize that food had a life. The foods that we consume had life, and they're giving us life, and we've got to remember to respect them, and appreciate ourselves as well, and take care of ourselves in that aspect. Um, yeah, that's all I have for today's exercise or today's presentation. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to reach out. And as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, that this presentation is accessible on Facebook and the YouTube page, and that you can leave comments or questions, and we'll get back in touch with you. So thanks for spending time with us. I hope you learned something, and I hope that these messages are shared with family. So, to record. Have a great day. Thank you.